Can we start?
We will start, sir.
Okay, are you able to hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah, audible, sir.
Okay, can we start?
Yes, sir. Start, sir.
Okay. Dear friends, good morning. Is it a good morning or a sad morning? I do not know. Yesterday's demise of Mr. Abe, our beloved ex-Prime Minister of Japan, was a rude shock to everybody in the world. I want to recall Mr. Abe's being our chief guest of India's Republic Day in 2014. At that time, with all the busy schedule, Abe-san took time to meet the AOTS alumni in India. So there are 8 alumni associations. You can see all our friends there in the thing. And I, as the president of the federation, had the privilege of receiving Abe-san for this meeting. And he shared the dais with all our alumni, took a photograph in spite of the fact that he has to rush for the next meeting. But he spared a few minutes to be with us. And we were all extremely happy to meet him and listen to him. A great personality. World lost a great leader. Japan lost its economic visionary. And India lost its great friend. All happened because of a madman's bullet. It's very sad. And then my friend, Dr. Preeti Amresh, a young lady, she has been writing books after books. She's in the international strategy and relationship. Her first book was Economics on Japanese economy. And then there was a chapter on the Abe-san's visions, Abenomics. I had the privilege of writing the preface and reading the book. It was a very well written, and it brought a lot of memories in my mind about what she wrote on Abe-san's Abenomics. We miss Abe-san today. I pray on behalf of everyone who is present here and on behalf of the ABK AOTS Goshuin Tamil Nadu Center, on behalf of the Federation of the AOTS Alumni Associations in India, that may Abe-san's soul rest in peace, and still his spirit should guide all of us and guide Japan. Abe-san, we miss you. We'll miss you forever, but I know in spirit you will be with us. Thank you, Abe-san, for whatever you have done. Thank you. Now, friends, today we'll be talking about ships and boats, part A of Japan. Let's start the presentation. You know, you would have seen there's a few first commemorative stamps which were released in the year 1921. Okay, 1921, September 3, this was released. The battleship Katori and Kashima, 2 battleships, and they were there. Kashima Senken was the second ship of the 2 Katori class pre-downdrafter battleships built for the Imperial Japanese Navy, IJN, in the first decade of 20th century, and last to be built by the British shipyards, ordered just before the start of the Russo-Japanese War in 1904-1905. Of course, you all know Japan defeated Russia, and Japan was the first Asian power that defeated a European power. It's a great day for all of us in Asia. The ship was completed year after its end. She saw no combat during the World War I, although the ship was present when Japan joined the Siberian intervention in 1918, and Kashima was disarmed and scrapped in 23 and 24. But why are we talking about this? Because in 1921, March 3rd, Hirohito, the crown prince, became the first crown prince of Japan to travel abroad and study voyaging to Europe. He returned back to Japan after 6 months, exactly 6 months, on 3rd September 1921, sailing the battleship Katori. After his returning to Japan, he became the regent of Japan, what we call as Seisho, on 25th November 1921, in the place of his ailing father. That's why the Katori finds an important place in the Japanese stamps. Then the next set of ships we see is, you see these two ships, the white pagoda at the back, and that's called at a place called Liuyang, and warship Hei. The visit of Kangre Emperor Manchukuo to Japan was commemorated with these two stamps. Then the Emperor of Japan, by then, the Crown Prince has become the Emperor Hirohito, welcomed P.U. Kangre, Emperor Manchukuo, right at the Tokyo train station. The photo was courtesy of Getty Images. This stamp was issued at the commemorating that incident. Then there is what we see in Japanese, what they call as Goshuin-bune, or the trading vessel. The picture shows the Goshuin-bune was a large-sized foreign trader authorized by the shogunate. You know very well, during the Edo period, the shogunate closed its doors to outside Japan. Nothing went out, but except for a very small place in the Kyushu, northern Kyushu Islands, in Nagasaki area, there was an opening for foreigners to come and trade and take away things. Okay, then it was active in trade with Southeast Asia from the Momoyama period, that is 1575 to 1600, to the early part of Edo period, 1615 to 1886. By means of the Goshin-sen, the wealthy merchants of Kyoto, Sakai, and Nagasaki set about foreign trade. At the beginning, the ship was built after the Chinese fashion and about 30 meters long. But later, European shipbuilding techniques was adopted, the body became larger. Now, if you see in those days, this printed, the typographic method. And so there were a lot of, those days, there's a good amount of watermarks at the back of the thing to stop forgery of this thing, because during the war, due to scarcity of material, many times, even at the very beginning, the stamps used to have a watermark at the back, which is not happening now. Okay, and this is a definitive stamp, regular standard stamp. You can see the wavy pattern at the back. That is the watermark that you see. And this is a violet, or a deep indigo and violet mixed color. And then this was released in 1937 on 1st of November. And this is a very important event that has come on a Japanese stamp, which changed the history of Japan. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a surprise military strike by the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service upon the United States against the naval base at Pearl Harbor in Honolulu, territory of Hawaii, just before 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. You can see The ships lined up there in Pearl Harbor, and Japan went and attacked them. There's an aerial attack. Many ships of the United States were damaged. United States was a neutral country at that time, though they had occupied territory in the South Asia or Southeast Asia, I would say. The attack led to a formal entry of USA into the World War the very next day after the Pearl Harbor. And that's where all the trouble started, and ending up in the atom bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The strike climaxed a decade of worsening relation between US and Japan. And that was the turning point of the Pacific War. Those people call it as World War II because it was being fought in two fronts, one on the west and one on the east. The eastern side was also called as Pacific War. Then this stamp shows you ship construction in Japan at those days. The ship construction at Uraga Dock Company in Uraga. If you all remember, Uraga Bay is the place where for the closed door to be opened, Commodore Perry arrived with his black ships in Yokohama. So Uraga Bay is historically is also a very important place in the Japanese history, which made the shogunate to open its doors to outside world. The subdivision of Yokosuka. Yokosuka still has got a US base there in Kanagawa Prefecture, and we in ABK, which is Dosokai Tamil Nadu Center, we have a good relationship with Kanagawa Prefecture Governor's Office. This happened in ship construction started in 1960, which is according to the thing Showa 35. The Uraga Dock Company was founded in 1869. That is Meiji year 2, the Meiji 2, by the Admiral Enamoto Takeki, one of the founders of the Imperial Japanese Army. Because the emperor was there, so it was all called as Imperial. By 1990, Taisho 8, it was considered that one of the largest and the best equipped private shipyards in the world. The ship was acquired by Sumitomo Group in 1969 and closed down in 2003, Heisei 15. Now, if you see this stamp shows 4 stars and shows emergency life raft called Ragu in a ship and a winch in the foreground and a bright southern crux constellation in the background. That's why this stamp has been made for the southern constellation, but they have to fill up the foreground, so there's a beautiful silhouette of a life-saving raft with this winch that lowers it into the water. Crux means the cross in Latin. Ancient Greeks considered crux to be a part of the constellation Centaurus. Crux has 1 star with known planets, and contains no messier objects. The brightest star in the constellation is Acris Alpha Chris with an apparent magnitude of 0.7 Acris is the 12th brightest star in the sky. This stamp was released in 1952, and it's a beautiful velvet colored stamp, and it is a face value of 5N. And if you look at it, 5 is followed by 2 zeros. That's the time before that it is N. Then they also have some stamps written with E and N, then 00, then without ending, that is the N stamps. Now, there is a floating fare on a ship. This is purely with the idea to improve the trade. Japan did this floating fare on the board of Sakura-Maru, and it's intended more as a public relations exercise than a way of boosting sales. Since World War II, Japan has established an enviable reputation for low price and high quality. And they had very lot of innovative products. The Japanese have really made a name for themselves in electronics industry. There are plenty of examples of innovative products on the show on board of Sakura-Maru. This is what the media news wrote about this particular ship, which went around as an exhibition ship. And you see this stamp shows a ship, as well as it also shows a penguin. The stamp shows symbol of International Geophysical Year. You can see the globe on the top with them. You see an emperor penguin and Antarctic research vessel Soya. Soya is a Japanese icebreaker that serves as a museum ship in in Tokyo after a long and storied service spanning for more than 20 centuries historic events. It's named after Soyo sub-prefecture in Hokkaido. The vessel was built and commissioned by the Soviet. The name is Wellerchowitz in 1936 from Matsuo shipyard in Nagasaki and Koyagi Islands. If you see, Soviet is almost sharing the northern border with Japan. So Japan and Russia also bought the war and they lost. And they also had the relationship. Still, there are strained relationships, working relationships. It's a very interesting exercise between Japan and the Soviets. Naosuke signed the Treaty of Amity and Commerce, opening trade between the United States and Japan in 1858. Naosuke was a daimyo in Ikone, that is 1850-1860, and also Tairo of the Tokugawa shogunate in Japan, a position held from April 23, 1858 until his death, when he was assassinated in a Sakura incident and on March 24, 1860. He's the most famous for signing the Harris Treaty. Townsend Harris came, then he signed a treaty, followed by the treaty that was signed by the first time when Japan opened its door. And after that, the commercial and trade treaty has got to be made. Townsend Harris was sent from US and he signed with the science, this thing with Naosuke. So this treaty was between Japan and the US, granting access to ports for trade and American merchants and seamen and extraterritorial advantage to American citizens. So a stamp was released commemorating that 100 years of this opening of the ports to trade. The ship Kasatomaru is a symbol of 100 years of emigration to Brazil and the Japanese community to Brazil. Now, one second, let me just move this out of my way. Really have trouble. Okay, now it's okay. And also a symbol of new exchanges between the two countries. America, the Latin America wanted a lot of people to work in their farms, especially the sugarcane farms. And a lot of Japanese left at that time to work in Latin America. There are a huge population of Japanese second generation, third generation in Latin America. Kasatomaru and Kasodomaru, whichever way you call it, was a Japanese cargo passenger ship built by British shipyard in 1900. She was then used to transport Japanese immigrants to Hawaii in 1906 and Peru and Mexico in 1907. 1908, she brought the first official group of Japanese migrants to Brazil. This is the 50th anniversary stamp in commemorating that. Now, the 42nd station, Kuwan by Utagawa Hiroshig, this is one of those stamps, which is what you call as ukiyo-e stamp. Now, Utagawa Hiroshig was a Japanese ukiyo-e artist, considered the last great master of the tradition. The 53 stations of Tokaido, or the rest areas along the Tokaido. Tokaido is a route or a road, which is a coastal route that ran between Nihonbashi in Edo. Even now, Japan, all distances, the zero is in Nihonbashi Bridge. That's where the zero to any distance, any place in Japan is being measured. To Sanjo Ohashi, that's Ohashi means another bridge in Kyoto. Shogun's elegant ships sail from Miya to Kuwano in the Issei Bay regularly. That's why Issei Bay is a place where Kuwana is a place. Kuwana Station 42, a wonderful print from the early Yoshitoshi, because the ukiyo-e artists only make the first thing, but there are a lot of process. And one of the important things is the man who makes the prints. There are few of those printers who take the thing and then do. Yoshitoshi is one of them, and his print was one of the best printed by this publisher. They are publishers of these prints. So, number of publishers, 4 or 5 of them were there at that time doing that, and depicting the 53 stations of the Tokaido done to commemorate the journey of Shogun from Edo to Kyoto in 1863. That is the significance of the stamp. Then Kanrin Maru. Kanrin Maru means unyielding. Was Japan's first sail and screw-driven steam corvette. She was ordered in 1853 from Netherlands, the only Western country with which Japan had diplomatic relations throughout its period of Sakoku. Sakoku is the time when Japan closed its doors to outside world and did not allow outsiders to come except for the small portion in near Nagasaki. And so that's called the seclusion period in the Edo era, by the shogun's government, which is called Bakufu. Bakufu means the military government. They are called as, the actual meaning is tent government. The military government, Bakufu, did not allow Japan to open its door. She was delivered on September 21st, 1857. The name Japan on the thing by the Dutch Navy, gave them the thing. The ship was used at the newly established naval school at Nagasaki in order to build up knowledge of Western warship technology. Now, first year of Manan era, a mission to America was dispatched in 1860 by the Tokugawa shogunate, the Bakufu, in Kanrin Maru. Why did they choose Kanrin Maru? Because the objective was to ratify the new Treaty of Friendship, Commerce, and Navigation between the United States and Japan. In addition to being Japan's first diplomatic mission to the United States since 1854 opening of Japan. Okay. Till then, US sent a mission and then they signed the agreement. They went to US. Another significant facet of the mission was to demonstrate to the world outside the degree to which Japan had mastered Western navigation techniques and ship technologies, barely 6 years after ending the isolation policy in nearly 250 years. Now, you see, this is a symbol. This is a stamp that is released for the merger of 5 cities to a larger city called Kita-Kyu. 5 birds, you see there are 5 birds, a symbol of the former cities of Mochi, Kokura, Wakamatsu, Yawata, and Tabata. Have factory chimneys and steamers for the plan and a plan to merge to form Kita-Kyu. Now, the port of Kita-Kyu is located in the middle of a straight line connecting Tokyo and Shanghai, China, and roughly in the center of Northeastern Asia with Dalian, China, and Seoul and Busan, South Korea. Located within 1,000 kilometers, the Moji port is the best port of call on the way to major cities. Now, this I will show you, it's a very tricky place. Serving as a gateway to Kyushu, the city has excellent transportation access to Kyushu and also to the main island Honshu. So it's just there in that thing. Namely, now it's connected, Kyushu and Honshu are connected by an expressway over a bridge, and also the JR Shinkansen line, and also there is the airport in both places. Now, the 25th Maritime Day, Sam shows Imperial Yacht Meiji Maru and the Japanese Gulls. Meiji Maru is a Japanese sailing ship that serves as a museum ship in Tokyo today. Emperor Meiji sailed in the ship in 1876 from Aomori to Hakodate and Hakodate into Yokohama. The ship contains a decorated cabin for the sole use of Emperor. Japan, the 3rd Monday in July, is the Maritime Day, which is originally commemorated the Emperor's arrival in Yokohama at the end of his journey on the ship. Now, today there is 1 day holiday. I think it's been slightly shifted. The stamp has been issued to publicize the Antarctica expenditure, which left on the observation ship Fuji on 2011-1965. Sitting on the Port Nagoya's Garden Walk Opposite to the Nagoya Aquarium is a large, bright orange-white ship. The large, stroky Sea King helicopter riding piggyback on the deck of that ship. This is a Japanese Antarctica survey ship Fuji, which a retired one now, and it's an icebreaker that piled South Pole for 18 years, planning its first journey in 1860, starting its first journey in 1965. The Fuji could break through an ice as thick as 80 centimeters. This stamp was released in 1965. And of course, those times, no watermark, everything. It's a 10-yen stamp. By now, the 00s of the yen is already gone. Now, this stamp is issued to commemorate the 5th Congress of the International Association of Ports and Harbors in Kobe. Because remember, Kobe had a very bad earthquake, but again, Kobe stood as an example of Japanese tenacity and the way they can bounce back from any type of catastrophe. The ship in the foreground is a passenger vessel called Sumoto-maru, built as a passenger ferry under the yard 236 by Sanayosu Dock Company, Osaka. Built for accommodation of 571 passengers and completed in 1965. Used in service between Osaka, Kobe, and Sumoto. That's a ship that you see in the foreground, a white one. Now, children and Sakura-maru. The International Youth Exchange Program of the Cabinet Office, Government of Japan, started in 1959 by launching the Japan Youth Goodwill Mission Program, proposed by the Prime Minister Kishi, to commemorate the royal wedding of His Majesty the Emperor, who was His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince. Because before becoming the Emperor, he was the Imperial Highness the Crown Prince. In 1967, the Japanese Youth Goodwill Program began as a commemorative project for the centennial of the Meiji Restoration. Then, both the Japanese Youth Goodwill Mission Program and the Japanese Youth Goodwill Cruise Program were a project which provided big dreams of hopes to many Japanese youths. That's why you can see the children's face along with the Goodwill Program, Sakura-maru ship. Now, this is a nuclear ship, Mutsu, issued to publicize the launching of the first Japanese nuclear ship, Mutsu. RV Mirai is a Japanese oceanographic research vessel. Now the name of this is RV Mirai. Okay, it's a Japanese research vessel. That's why RV is there. She was originally built as a nuclear-powered general cargo ship, Mutsu, but never carried any commercial cargo. After removing the reactor in 1995 and decontaminating the vessel, Mutsu was rebuilt as an ocean-observing vessel Mirai. Mirai means future. Okay, looking at the future. Okay, this stamp was released in 1996. Now, there's a cable laying ship called KKD Maru. The stamp depicts the cable ship KKD Maru and a map of the Japan Sea. Japan Sea is, you can see, it lies between the mainland China and Japan. Okay. The stamp is commemorating the completion of the Japan Sea cable between Noya, Japan, and Nakahodika, Russia. Okay. Russia, China, all that is there in the main. Kokusai Cable Ship Company in September 24, 2021 concluded a Memorandum of Understanding MOU on collaborative operation of the cable laying ships to meet increasing demand for installation of power cables, a key element for supply chains in the globally expanding offshore wind farm business. KCS is Kokusai Cable Corporation, Kokusai Cable Ship Corporation, was established in 1966, and the following year launched the KDD Maru, the ship, Japan's first submarine cable laying ship. Now, Takarabune, the Japanese folklore, Takarabune is a treasure ship, and it's a mythical ship. Actually, the ship doesn't exist. It's a mythical ship piloted through the heavens by the 7 lucky gods called Ship Shichifukujin, and of course, one of them is Kubera, the god of wealth, and also there is a goddess like our Saraswati carrying a small musical instrument called Bentran Sama, I think. And during the first 3 days of the new year, it is mythologically believed the ship will be sailing and then bringing goods of good fortune and luck. Takara means treasure. It's a treasure ship, so it will bring Takara to everybody's house. Like what they say, the Christians say, Christmas, Tata, Christmas grandfather, he will bring a lot of goodies for the children. Like that, Takarabune will bring a lot of goodies for the houses. The picture of the ship forms an essential part of the traditional Japanese New Year celebration. The gods carry with them treasure things, including hat of invisibility, rolls of brocade, inexhaustible pearls, the secret keys to the treasure shed of gods, the scrolls of books and wisdom and life, the magic mallet, the lucky raincoat, the robe of fairy feathers, and a bag of fortune. They're all supposed to be a part of Takarabune's goods that they bring in for you. Customs 100th anniversary commemoration. It's what you see as a stamp. It's a beautiful painting with the ships being there. It's a customs 100th anniversary. A view of the foreign buildings along Kaigadori. Kaigadori means like our marina, which runs very parallel to the seashore. That's called Kaigadori. Beach Road, as seen from Yokohama Wharves by Utagawa Hiroshig 3. See, though you may get the repeated names, many of them got their original childhood names. When they attach themselves to a master, they try to take the master's name also, because that gives them more credibility or popularity, or makes them to be known to the people. The stamp shows the bustling harbor settlement in Yokohama. It is thriving multinational population. That's the time Yokohama. That's why till now you can know Yokohama has got a lot of European population at that time, because Yokohama is the first place where Commodore Perry came and opened up the with the what you call as a Takarabune, the black ship. After 2 centuries of isolation ended in 1853, when Commodore Perry's ships came and forced Japan to open the doors. The Japanese were intensely interested in the outside world. One good thing with Japan is that very easily they can learn things, assimilate whatever is outside, and they can adopt it to their own thing. So they're not just copy people. They know, but whatever they copy, immediately they convert it so that it works in Japan. It becomes more of Japanese. Yokohama's prince documented the beginning of foreign influence on the Japanese life, including dress, modes of transportation, the building styles. That you can see all of them in this stamp. The bright colors are the aniline dyes of coal tar base. That's what that is used for making this thing in those prints. Now, Kanmon Bridge. This got some relevance to an earlier stamp where I talked to you about the strait between Honshu and Kyushu. The Kanmon Bridge is a suspension bridge crossing the Kanmon Strait, a stretch of water separating two Japan's 4 major islands. This one is Kyushu, and another one is Honshu. We talked about Kita-Kyushu and Kita-Kyushu, 5 of the smaller things joined together to become Kita-Kyushu. And that is a strait that you have. The meaning Kanmon in Japanese is difficult, or hurdles in English. And there are many difficulties and hurdles in the Kanmon Strait. The sea width is narrow between them. The terrain is complex and difficult to pass through by a ship. The Kanmon Strait is only 0.7 kilometers wide, although it is 27 kilometers long. Although its scale is smaller than that of other straits in the world, many more vessels pass through this strait because it's a it's a location that matters, with currently about 500 ships a day. These ships pass through the strait a day because Kanmon Strait's excellent location. Kanmon Strait is in the international route, like Singapore, Hong Kong. They all have a strategical location. Even Sri Lanka's got a strategical location. That's why today they are also suffering because China wanted to have a foothold but let them down. Okay. Now we look at some beautiful stamps of olden day ship and also modern ship. Okay. Kanmin Sen, the government authorized trade ship. That's what you see, the 20 M ship here on the left in a gray color. The ship was used by the government in Muromachi period, Muromachi era is period, 14th to 16th century, to dispatch its mission to Ming dynasty, that is in China in those days. Trade took the form of presenting gifts through envoys for about 150 years until 1852. These ships were sent. Then other ship that you see on the red color is Kento Shisen, is a large Chinese vessel, ocean-going ship, which crossed the East China Sea over a dozen times, and from China in Asuka period, Nara period, and Heian period. Several ships of these types were used for a single voyage to carry a total of over 500 persons to China's capital. Okay. Goshuin-bune was a large-sized foreign trader authorized by the shogunate, that is Edo government. It was active in trade with Southeast Asia from Momoyama period, 1575 to 1600, to the early period of Edo period, 1615 to 1866. By means of this Goshuin-bune, the Sen is a ship, wealthy merchants of Kyoto, Sakai, Nagasaki, and they set about their foreign trade. Tenchimaru is what you see on the other side. Tenchimaru was a state ship built. See, I'm showing the ship, the stamp, as well as the lieutenant pair of the ship. This stamps are sold as single or a lieutenant pair. So each stamp is 20 yen face value. So the lieutenant pair is 40 yen. Now, Tenchimaru is a state ship built by the order of the Shogun Iemitsu Tokugawa, and the third constructed like a warship and lacquered vermilion. It is a gorgeous ship with 76 oars, and it was in use from 1630 to the last days of Tokugawa shogunate till the end of the Edo period. And then Sengoku-bune, commonly called as Benzaisen, was a large freighter, Japanese style, that played the leading part in the marine transportation in the Edo period. Edo period again is the shogunate period, having been Tokugawa years established the Edo dynasty, and then that's why they were going there. Having been constructed as a coastwise ship when Japan was nationally isolated from the foreign country. It was vulnerable in the rough weather and experienced not a few disasters at the sea. But yet the high goodwill of the industrial economy of the Edo period depended much on the activities of the Sengoku-bune. You can see the Sengoku-bune, the light vermilion color on the left-hand side with the big sails. And Shohei-maru was a battleship, the Western style, in 3 masts and measuring 31 meters long, 7.3 meters broad, and 4.5 meters depth. Okay. Nariakira Shimazu, 1809 to 1858, feudal lord of the Satsuma clan. There's another clan called Satsuma clan, because there are a lot of clans like that. The ship constructed consulting Western books and dedicated this to the Edo shogunate. Then Taiseimaru was a large bark with 4 masts built in 1903 and navigation training boat. You can see how the style of the ship has been changing, attached to the Merchant Marine School. Now it's a university. The equipment of the boat was so perfect that the matchless in the world in those days. It navigated more than 60 times, covering more than 600,000 nautical miles in total, with more than 4,000 students trained on board on it before it sank down in 1945, now torn again by a torpedo. Okay. Tenyomaru, after the Russo-Japanese War, 1904-1905, the average gross tonnage of the English and American passenger ships on the Pacific line was increased to 10,000 tons, while that of the Japanese was then 6,000 tons. Under these circumstances, to we with the Western Lines, Tokyo Shipping Company built in 1908 the steamer or the line with a gross tonnage of more than 13,464 tons, able to carry 366 passengers, and it was fed with liquid fuel, equipped with wireless set for the first time in Japan. That is how they have been introducing electronics and technology into their boats. Now, Taiseimaru is one of the 3 ships Nippon U.S. Shipping Company built to be put on the North America run after the First World War and launched on October 25th. It is not only the largest passenger ship in Japan, but the first large-size dieselized passenger ship on the Pacific line. The equipment being on the highest level of it was applauded as the Queen of the Pacific in those days by everyone. Kanmon was the speed tug freighter put in the New York direct run on June 1930. Its highest speed being 18 knots, the high speed rarely experienced in the world at that time. It made a voyage to New York in 25 days, 17 hours and 30 minutes, 9 days earlier than the time it had taken to get there before. The transportation route of this, the raw silk, was switched from the Trans-American Railway to the excellent high-speed freighters, including Kanmon. Then comes the container ships and the oil tankers. Okay, Japan used to build huge size tankers to bring oil for them, also container ship. The container ship made a debut to meet the requirements of the requirements of efficiency and rationalization. The times in 1967, for the first time in the world, America put a container ship in service on the Pacific run, was the Hakone-Maru, the first container ship in Japan, constructed by Nippon Ushibuka-haiya, entered service on North American West Coast run in 1968. Tanker. Japan consumes about 300 million kiloliters of petroleum a year, 95% of which is imported from the Middle East and Near East countries and Indonesia. The transportation, to transport crude oil in large quantities by sea, and sea tankers have to become a very large size, and the number has increased, carrying quantities of oil at that time. Because a gigantic tanker has contributed to reduce the transportation export. At last, in June 1975, the Nissei Maru, the dead weight of which was 480,000 tons, made its debut. That is, Japan became a pioneer in shipbuilding in those days. You can see the block of 4, then the Saturn and pair, and also the postcards that were issued commemorating these ships. Japan-China submarine cable. Earlier, there was a submarine cable that was laid between Japan and Russia. Now, opening China-Japanese cable between Shanghai and Ryukyucho, Kumamoto Prefecture. Kumamoto Prefecture is in Kyushu Island. China-Japanese cable was opened on October 25, 1976, for a distance about 850 kilometers in Shanghai and Reiho Kumachi, Kumamoto Prefecture. The agreement concerning the construction and the preservation of the cable was concluded on May 29, 1974, between Shanghai Post and Telegraphic Bureau and Kokusai Genshin Denwa Company Limited at Japan. Japan based the arrangements concerning the construction of the China-Japanese cable concluded in May 1973 between the General Bureau of Telegraph, People's Republic of China, and the Ministry of Post and Telecommunication, Japan. The cable service accommodates 480 circuits in terms of telephone, will greatly improve the communication between these two countries. At that time, China is one of the most closely related country to Japan. Today, of course, their relationship is not all that good, but still they try to. Japanese will never do anything to spoil any relationship. Centenary of Japanese quarantine system. To commemorate the centenary of the quarantine system in Japan, a 50 yen commemorative stamp was being issued. You can see that's a quarantine stamp issued in 1979, no watermarks. And quarantine is a system of regulation to prevent germs and contagious diseases from entering the country through shipping and aircraft. The worldwide epidemic of cholera in 1860 did not spare Japan, and many lives were lost in the catastrophe. The quarantine system was thus instituted with the enhancement of regulations for the prevention of cholera in ports, and in 1879. This was followed by enactment of Port Quarantine Act, inclusion of aircraft quarantine, quantities of expatriates after the quarantine of expatriates after the end of the World War II, and enactment of Quarantine Act 1951. The fiscal 1977 quarantine service covered about 450 vessels, 450,000 vessels, 45,000 vessels, and 37,000 aircraft. The total number of persons reaching 6,500,000 at 96 quarantine stations, including branches and agencies. Now, the 50th anniversary of training sailboat Nippon Maru, Nippon Maru is a spelling mistake, and Nippon Maru and Keio-maru. A 50 yen stamp was released, issued on May 17, 1980, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the training vessels, training shipping, sailing ships, Nippon Maru and Kaiwo-maru. It has been 50 years since the construction of the large sailing ships, Nippon Maru and Kaiwo-maru, in 1930. Both ships have been of identical design. They were elegant, four-masted sailing vessels. They have come to have priceless significance to the world, which try to cross the oceans, the Pacific, particularly to visit the maritime nations. So far, either has logged about 1.5 million kilometers of over the seas, and during this time, about 20,000 students from the merchant marine colleges and schools have used these two ships for their practical training. The training institute was established in 1930 under the Imperial Edict number 108 to administer the two sailing vessels. The Maritime Training Institute was founded as a part of the Ministry of Education, but later the name was changed to the President Institute of Nautical Training and was placed under the Ministry of Transport. Now, IAPH, International Association of Ports and Harbors, they were celebrating the 12th annual general meeting in Tokyo. The IAPH is a non-government organization and NGO headquartered in Tokyo, Japan. And November 1955, some 100 world port leaders gathered in Los Angeles to announce the creation of IAPH. IAPH was developed into a global alliance of ports, representing today some 160 ports and 100 ports related businesses in 87 countries. The member ports together handle well over 60% of the world's seaborne trade and over 60% of the world container traffic. The 12th annual general meeting of IA was held in Tokyo in 1981, for which the commemorative stamp was issued. You can see the ship carrying the IAPH. Now, 400th University of Christian Boys Delegation to Europe. If you see, Japan was closed its doors, but only one small portion was opened near Nagasaki, and through which the Portugal, Dutch, they were coming in. There were a lot of missionaries also came in. There were many Japanese also got into accepting Christian faith. And Shonai, she said, was a mission of 4 boys and others dispatched to Rome in 1582 by the Christian feudal lords in Kyushu. Kyushu is the place where Nagasaki is located. All the opening of the doors will happen there, and the whatever Westerners who could come in, the Dutch came in, the Portugals came in, all that. So they were all there, and then they were one of the jobs apart from trade was also mission to spread Christianity. In 1982, the stamp shows the type of 16th century ship which they sailed in, and on a map based in 1570 map, which they brought back with them. An echo card of some kind, you can see the echo card is a postal card on the right-hand side with the ship of 4 boys sitting on them. They're the first 4 boys who got converted into Christianity, and it bears advertisement and is sold for less than face value, with a difference being paid by the advertiser. So there is a face value on the stamp, but it is sold at a lesser price than that. The difference is paid by the person who is advertising there. So these 4 boys who first got converted, they went to Rome. So they were dispatched to Rome. So the stamp was released for that. Shirase, Antarctic observation ship made in Hawaii. You see, so far we have seen Soya, Chuji, and now we have Antarctica ship called Shirase. Shirase is a Japanese icebreaker. Again, they need icebreakers to operate there, operated by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Forces, and the Japan's 4th icebreaker for the Atlantic expedition. She replaced her predecessor Fuji the icebreaker. Her construction was completed in November 1982, and the 25th observation team on board. She made the maiden voyage on the 14th November 1983. You can see all the penguins going in front of the ship and the stamp. It's again a beautiful stamp, and you can see what you see at the back is the Ariaria borealis, what you call it, I don't know. So then we have 100 years of merchant marine training. Makata Kondo and Yataro Iwasaki, founders of nautical schools, along with 4 master work, Nippon Maru 2, are seen in the commemorative stamp issued for the 110th year of Merchant Marine Training Center that was established. The stamp was issued on July 26, 1986. Then we also have what you call the Holland Festival. As I told you, Holland is one of those nations, the Dutch, were permitted to enter into Japan at Nagasaki. Since 1947, the Holland Festival, this stamp was released on 19th April 1989. Since 1947, the Holland Festival is a leading international performing arts festival in Netherlands. The festival features established names as well as new talent, showing innovation and art, exploring the new types of venue and forms of theatre. In 1609, the trade between Holland and Japan started to commemorate the 380 opening trade between the two countries. 380 years of trade opening between the two. The stamp shows a vibrant atmosphere in an ukiyo-e style picture. Let's see that of Nagasaki, which is the only port at that time foreigners to enter. Then they also had a Nagasaki Expo. Nagasaki is the Japanese port that was nearly destroyed by an atomic bomb on August 9, 1945. Celebrated its rich history with the Nagasaki Journey Exposition 1990. Citywide event beginning February Friday and continuing throughout November 4th. An expo commemorating stamp was issued on August 1st, 1990 as shown. The main expo site will be Matsugae, a wharf that serves as a major international port. And then among the attractions, there was a 446 sky tower as well as 6,360 square foot model recreation of Tejima Island. Tejima Island was an artificial island created for those people within Nagasaki who are doing the Westerners who are doing the business. They were all restricted within the Tejima Island. The only place in Japan where European, the first Portuguese and then the Dutch were allowed to live and form from 1630 to 1856. Okay. Then Ushibuka-haiya Festival. Ushibuka-haiya Festival, the stamp was issued on 1st April 1996. It's a very interesting thing. The fishing boats left this morning with the wind of Hay. Southern wind. Hay is southern wind. How far will they go? That's a song. Okay. The beginning of the song expresses that how much women in Ushibuka worry about their sailors. Ushibuka-haiya Bushi is said to be the originated in the later Edo period. At that time, Ushibuka was an important port of sea travel. Lots of fishing was called on the port. The sailors, and once they are there, the ships have to wait for a long time for the tides to reach them and then the winds to be favorable for them. So the sailors need to be in Ushibuka for quite some time. So the sailors and the women in Ushibuka enjoyed dancing and singing together. So the women in Ushibuka also wanted to entertain the sailors. So they used to sing and dance on the streets. Today also this Ushibuka, this is called Ushibuka-haiya. This festival is called Ushibuka-haiya Festival. So the sailors and women in Ushibuka enjoyed dancing together and singing together. And this is said to be the origin of Ushibuka-haiya Bushi. Now, this song what they sing in Ushibuka has become almost known all over Japan, because these sailors from Ushibuka, they go to the other ports. Wherever they go, they sing and dance with Ushibuka. So this Ushibuka has almost become a sailor's dance in many ports. Maritime Day emblem. Maritime Day, Umi no Hi, as known as Ocean Day or the Sea Day, is a Japanese national holiday usually celebrated on third Monday in July. Even though it was only 1996 that the Maritime Day became a national holiday, its history dates back to the Meiji era. In 1876, the Meiji Emperor went on a cruise. So I showed you long back the Meiji ship had a specially decorated room for Emperor Meiji, and then it went and then landed up back in Yokohama port. The day it landed in Yokohama port was the 20th July and 1876. That day, Meiji Emperor, after the trip of the thing, seeing some of the ports in Japan, not outside, and he ended his expedition through Tohoku region and in Yokohama on July 20th. To commemorate this event, 20th July has been celebrated as a Day of the Sea, Umi no Hi. So that's why I told you at that time, we'll talk about it in another slide. This is a slide. And that is the Day of the Sea, the ocean and the Navy, since 1941. It became a national holiday and the first day of the work of the summer season. Okay. When Happy Monday Seido, okay, when Happy Monday Seido, the Happy Monday system was introduced to the Japanese calendar, he was moved to the third Monday in July. So you can see a model ship made of paper, and what we all do, that has become the symbol of the thing. Nippon Maru 2 is a cadet training ship. Nippon Maru is a Japanese training sailing ship operated by the National Institute of Sea Training in Tokyo. Now, she was built in Sumitomo Heavy Industries in Oraga, Kanagawa, and was launched on 15th February 1981. We are moving more towards a current thing, when a commissioning occurring on 16th September. She was built as a replacement for the 1930 built Nippon Maru 1. And then this is Nippon Maru 2. She is triggered as a four-masted berth with a sail area of 2,760 square meters, that is 29,700 square feet, and has 2,500 horsepower diesel engines for the auxiliary function. She has a crew complement of 70 with a training complement of 120 training. So it's a sailing ship, but also had a diesel power. So it's a sort of hybrid. So they use the wind power as well as a diesel power. So thank you for joining us now. I once again conclude with a small note of prayer. May Ms. Abe's soul be rest in soul, may soul rest in peace. We will definitely miss a great friend of India. It's a very, very sad day for the world, Japan and India. Okay. Thank you all for joining me today.